My own mother and sister kicked me off the wedding guest list, but still expected me to work as their photographer for free. When I said no, they called me selfish. But wait till you hear what happened next. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe, so you won't miss the latest stories. I always knew my family had its favorites, but I never thought I'd be completely excluded from the most important day of my sister's life. I've never been the dramatic one in the family. I don't pick fights, I don't stir the pot. I just work hard, stay quiet, and try to show up for the people I love, even if they don't always do the same for me. I'm a professional event photographer. I've worked hundreds of weddings over the past few years. I know how chaotic they can be, how emotional they get, how many moving parts there are. But I also know how sacred they are. They're about love, unity, family. So naturally, when my sister got engaged, I was happy for her. I congratulated her, offered to help with planning, and even blocked off the weekend of her wedding in my calendar. I didn't accept any other bookings, assuming, like any normal person would, that I'd be attending the wedding. As her sister, a few months before the big day, I realized I hadn't received any kind of invite. Not a formal one, not even a save the date. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it got lost. Maybe they hadn't sent them all out yet. So one evening, while we were both at Mom's house for dinner, I asked her casually, "Hey, when should I expect the invite?" I was smiling, expecting a laugh or a "you'll get it soon." But instead, she just looked at me kind of awkwardly, then chuckled and said, "Oh, Mom didn't tell you. You're not on the guest list." I blinked, waiting for her to laugh. She didn't. I laughed awkwardly and said, "Wait, what? I'm not invited?" She replied like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Well, you'll be there anyway. You're doing the wedding photos, right?" I felt like someone had just poured a bucket of ice water down my back. She said it so casually, like it was just a business transaction. Like I wasn't her only sibling. Not a bridesmaid, not a guest, not family, just the photographer. I didn't even know how to respond at first. My heart was racing and I could feel my face flush with embarrassment. There were other people in the room, other family members, and no one even looked surprised. That hurt more than anything. Everyone seemed to know. Except me. I went home that night and cried. Not because I was left out of some fancy party, but because it hit me. They didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as a service. The next day, I called my mom. I thought maybe she would clear things up, tell me my sister had it wrong, that of course I was invited. But instead, she sighed like I was being difficult and said, "Honey, don't be dramatic. You're part of the wedding in a different way." A different way? I wasn't wearing a dress. I wouldn't be seated with the family. I wouldn't be in photos, because I'd be taking them. I asked her plainly, "So I'm not a guest, but I'm expected to show up and work." She didn't even hesitate. "You're great at what you do. Your sister needs you. It saves us a lot of money." There it was, that last sentence. That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about love or support or even celebrating a milestone. Together, it was about using me. I reminded her that I had blocked that weekend for them. Turned down paid gigs. I did that because I thought I was invited. I said. Mom paused and said, "Can't you just do this one thing for your sister? Don't be selfish." Selfish, for expecting to be treated like a family member at my own sister's wedding. For not wanting to be the unpaid vendor who silently captures everyone else's joy while being denied her own seat at the table. It was a slap in the face. Days passed and I tried to process everything. I wanted to show up. I wanted to be there. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was being treated as less. Eventually, I sent them a message. It was short and respectful. "I won't be photographing the wedding. I won't be attending either, not as a guest, not as a vendor. I wish you both a beautiful day." The fallout was immediate. My mom called me and cried. My sister sent angry texts. "You're overreacting. You're making this all about you. You're tearing this family apart." But what they didn't see is they had already done that. My sister could have asked me if I was willing to do the photos. She could have made me feel included and appreciated. My mom could have stood up for me. Instead, they made assumptions. They made plans around my labor, my skills, my free work, without even the courtesy of a conversation. The wedding happened without me. They hired a last-minute photographer. From what I heard, the photos didn't turn out great. Several relatives told me later, "It wasn't the same without you." I smiled politely. But I knew deep down, they only missed my camera, not me. Weeks later, my mom tried to smooth things over. She said, "We didn't mean to hurt you, we just assumed you'd help out." That's the problem. They always assume I'll help, that I'll be okay with being second. That I won't say. No, but this time I did. And I'm proud of that. I'm not just a vendor. I'm not a free service. I'm a daughter. A sister. A human being who deserves to be treated with respect, especially by the people who are supposed to love me most. I called my mom, hoping this was all some kind of misunderstanding. That maybe my sister had made a mistake, or that there was a miscommunication somewhere. Surely my own mother wouldn't be okay with me being excluded from a family wedding, especially when it was my only sister. But when she picked up the phone, her tone was already tired. Like she knew why I was calling and didn't want to deal with it. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I talked to Sarah today. She said I'm not on the guest list for the wedding." There was a pause, and then she replied with a sigh, "Honey, don't be dramatic. You're part of the wedding in a different way." A different way. I let the words sink in. She didn't deny it. She didn't say it was a mistake. She confirmed it, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. I could feel my throat tighten. "Wait, does that even mean?" I asked. "I'm not family that day, I'm just a hired hand." Her voice shifted into that calm, condescending tone she always used when I brought up something that made her uncomfortable. "Don't be sensitive," she said. "We need you. You're great at what you do. You take beautiful photos. Your sister really wants you there, just in that role." In that role, not as her daughter, not as Sarah's sister. Just as the photographer, a free vendor. I tried to stay calm. I was shaking, but I forced the words out. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "I don't get a seat at the ceremony. I don't get a meal. I'm not in any family photos, but I'm expected to be there the whole day, working." Mom didn't answer right away. Then, with a dismissive tone, she said, "You should be honored to help your sister like this." Honored, like I'd won some prize. Like they were doing me a favor by asking me to give up my weekend, my labor, my energy, all for free, while being completely excluded from the joy, the connection, the meaning of the event. "No," I said quietly. "I should be invited." There was silence on the line. I could feel years of quiet hurt bubbling to the surface, years of being the responsible one, the helpful one, the one who always showed up and never made a fuss. I had bent over backwards for this family more times than I could count. And now, when it really mattered, when it was about belonging, they didn't see me as family. They saw me as useful. "I blocked out that weekend for you guys," I said, my voice breaking a little. I turned down other work because I thought I'd be attending the wedding, not working it. My mom's reply was calm and cold. "Well, you are attending. You'll be there, won't you?" "No," I said. "That's not the same thing." She sighed again, louder this time. "Why are you making this such a big deal? It's just one day." But it wasn't just one day. It was years of being the backup, the overlooked one, the easy yes, the one who would always help but never be fully seen. And now I was being asked to show up, not to celebrate, not to witness, but to serve. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking back to the conversation, replaying every word. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined them sitting around. The reception, laughing, eating, taking photos, and me behind the camera, exhausted, invisible, and completely excluded from the very memories I was being asked to capture. I tried to imagine how I'd feel standing there all day, snapping photos of people hugging and crying and dancing, knowing that not a single person thought I belonged in any of those moments. I imagined them thanking the florist, the caterer, the DJ, and maybe, if they remembered, they'd give me a tired thanks at the end of the night, after I'd worked for 12 hours straight without a chair, a meal, or even a name tag. That said I was family. So the next morning I made a decision. I sent my mom and sister a message. No drama. No guilt tripping. Just the truth. I won't be photographing the wedding. I won't be attending either, not as a guest. Not as a vendor. I wish you both a beautiful day. It took less than 5 minutes for my phone to start blowing up. Mom called 3 times in a row. When I didn't answer, she sent a text. You're being selfish. You're going to regret this. My sister texted. You're ruining everything. How could you do this to me? Then the aunts chimed in, then the cousins, then even a few family friends, all telling me I was overreacting, that it was just one day, that I should suck it up and be there for my family. But no one, not one person, asked me how I felt. No one asked why I felt hurt, or what it meant to be left off the guest list. No one acknowledged that maybe I had a right to expect more from people who claimed to love me. They just wanted me to do what I'd always done, put their needs above my own, smile through the pain, and keep working like nothing was wrong. But I didn't, and for once I wasn't sorry. The week of the wedding arrived, and despite everything that had happened, I tried to stay calm. I had already made the decision not to photograph the event, not to participate in a way that made me feel like I didn't belong. But a small part of me still hoped, foolishly, maybe, that things could shift. That someone will come to their senses. That I'd walk into the rehearsal and anyone would pull me aside and say, hey, we're sorry. Of course you should be there as family. So I decided to show up for the rehearsal. Not to work, not to talk about photography or logistics or anything like that. Just to observe. To see if maybe I'd misread everything. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it felt. But spoiler alert, it was worse. I walked into the venue, and instantly felt out of place. There were hugs, laughter, people buzzing around in pretty dresses and dress shirts, rehearsing the walk down the aisle, sipping champagne, and enjoying being part of something special. I stood there quietly, awkwardly, unsure where I fit in. No one noticed me at first. And honestly, that might have been better, because when they did notice me, it was a conversation I wasn't even supposed to hear. I was walking past the side of the room, staying out of the way, when a woman I didn't recognize, probably a friend of the groom, or maybe one of the bridesmaids' moms, pointed at me and asked my sister, "Oh, is that your sister?" My sister turned to look at, then turned back with a laugh and said loud enough for me to hear, "Oh no, that's just our vendor." Our vendor. Those 2 words hit me like a gut punch. Not my sister, not Emily, not even our photographer. No, I was just the vendor, not family, not a guest. Not a human being with a connection to her, but a role, a tool. And it wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Dismissively. Like I was just another person being paid to be there, except I wasn't even being paid. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding in my ears. My hands started to tremble slightly, and I didn't know where to look. I was trying to act like I hadn't heard it, but my face must have said it all. A few people looked my way, quickly, awkwardly, then looked away again. No one said hi. No one greeted me with a hug or a "so glad you're here." They were all too busy being part of something I'd clearly been excluded from. I stood there a few more minutes, telling myself to breathe, to not cry, to not cause a scene. I reminded myself that I came here just to see. That I didn't owe anyone a smile or small talk. That the quiet pain I felt, that twisting ache in my chest, was real. And that I wasn't crazy for feeling it. I watched as my mom laughed with the groom's family. As my sister stood surrounded by friends, sipping wine, looking completely at ease. As chairs were arranged, bouquets handed out, instructions given. Every small interaction reinforced what I already knew deep down. I didn't belong there. Not because I wasn't family, but because they didn't want me to be. They had chosen the version of me that was useful. The one who could take great photos and save them money and make things easier. But me, the actual person, the sister, the daughter, I had been dismissed. I stood there for maybe 10 more minutes, invisible to most of the room. I thought about trying to catch my sister's eye, to maybe walk up and start a conversation. But why? So she could call me the vendor again. So she could act like I was overreacting. No, thank you. I quietly walked out of the venue. Number 1 stopped me. No one noticed me leave. I got into my car, closed the door, and just sat there for a few minutes with my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to hold back tears. I hadn't cried when I got the text saying I wasn't invited. I hadn't cried when my mom told me I should be honored to help out. But this, being reduced to a stranger, a utility, a label, this broke something inside me. I ended up driving aimlessly for a while after that. I didn't want to go straight home. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't even want to look at my phone. I just needed space to breathe, to process the fact that my own family had looked right past me. They hadn't just overlooked me. They had erased me from the story. I wasn't in the photos. I wasn't in the seating chart. I wasn't in the planning group chats. I wasn't even in their minds when they introduced me to others. I was just the vendor. But that day taught me something I didn't fully realize until I was driving home in silence. You can give and give and give to people. But if they only see your value in what you do for them, and not who you are, you'll never feel like you belong. And you shouldn't have to fight for a place at a table that should have always had your name on it. So I let go of the illusion that I mattered to them the way I thought I did. And in that space, I started building something else. A quiet kind of peace that comes from finally choosing yourself. That night, after everything I saw at the rehearsal, the way I was treated, the way my own sister denied me with a laugh, the way no one even acknowledged my presence, I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time staring at my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen, then pulled back, then hovered again. I knew what I needed to say. I just wasn't ready to deal with what would come after I said it, but silence was eating me alive. Pretending like I was okay with everything. The dismissal, the disrespect, the outright exclusion had turned into a slow, internal breakdown. So I typed the message. I kept it simple, no dramatic paragraphs. No guilt, just the truth. I won't be photographing the wedding. I won't be attending either, not as a guest, not as a vendor. Hope the day goes well. I hit send. 3 people, my mom, my sister, and the wedding planner, just to make sure they didn't expect me to magically show up with my camera. Then, I set my phone face down on the dresser and walked away. That night, I barely slept. I thought I'd feel relief, and in a way I did, but mostly I just felt heavy. Like I was finally standing up for myself, but also bracing for impact. Because I knew what was coming. The emotional backlash. The guilt trips. The accusations, and sure enough, it started the next morning. My phone lit up before the sun even came up. The first was from my mom. You're being selfish. Then came the text from my sister. You're ruining my big day. What is wrong with you? Then the group chat with my aunts and cousins lit up like a fireworks show. Someone must have told them. Maybe my mom, maybe Sarah herself. They all jumped in like it was some kind of emergency family crisis. You're tearing this family apart. I can't believe you would do this over some misunderstanding. You always find a way to make everything about you. I stared at the screen in disbelief. They were the ones who left me off the guest list. They were the ones who expected free labor, 0 acknowledgement, and no seat at the table. And now I was the villain for saying no? Even my Aunt Lisa, who I used to be close with, called me. Voice call, not even a message. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway. Sweetheart, she said in that overly sweet tone, I know you're hurt, but this is your sister's big day. Can't you just suck it up for one day? That phrase, suck it up for one day, echoed in my head like a siren. Why is it always my job to suck it up? Why is it me who has to shrink myself, bury my feelings, show up with a smile and a camera and pretend like I'm not being completely disrespected, just so everyone else can have their happy Instagram memories? No one was asking Sarah to make room for me. No one told my mom to apologize or try to fix things. No one was holding them accountable for reducing me to a tool. But I was expected to suck it up. Again, I didn't respond to most of the messages. There was no point. I could have written a 10-page essay explaining exactly why I felt disrespected, and it still would have been twisted into drama or overreacting. My silence was apparently louder than any explanation I could give. Then, a few hours later, Sarah sent me one last message. No, hey, no, please, reconsider. No attempt to meet me halfway. Just cold. Final and sharp. You've made it. Clear where you stand. Don't bother showing up. It was like a door slamming in my face. Not just for the wedding, but maybe forever. She didn't even try to understand. It wasn't, I'm sorry we made you feel like a vendor. It wasn't, I wish you were standing beside me as my sister. It was just, don't come. So, I didn't dress up that morning. I didn't check social media. I didn't call anyone. I stayed home, away from the noise, the fake smiles, the cold glances I would have received had I walked through those doors. The silence in my apartment that day was deafening. I won't lie and say I felt strong and empowered the whole time. I cried a lot. Not because I missed a party, but because I finally accepted something I had tried to ignore for years. They only value me when I'm useful, not when I'm honest, not when I'm vulnerable, not when I have needs. Only when I'm holding a camera, making things easier for everyone else, asking nothing in return. And when I finally said no, when I finally stepped away from a situation that made me feel small and invisible, they didn't rush to understand. They punished me for it. That day, I grieved the version of family I thought I had, but in its place, I found something else. Something quieter, yes, but stronger. I found the courage to stop performing for people who wouldn't clap for me. I found the strength to be okay with disappointing others if it meant honoring myself. And most importantly, I found the peace that comes from walking away, not in anger, but in self-respect. The wedding went on without me. I didn't hear about it right away. I didn't check social media, didn't ask anyone for updates, didn't go searching for photos or videos. I tried to let it go, to distance myself from something that had already made me feel so small. So erased, but of course, word gets around. A few days later, I started getting texts from cousins, secondhand comments from relatives, quiet whispers of how things had gone. It turns out they'd managed to find a last-minute replacement photographer, someone who had a free weekend, and was willing to jump in. The photos, let's just say, they weren't great. Blurry, badly lit, stiff posing, some moments missed entirely. Even the framing felt awkward. Nothing that ruined the day, but enough that a few relatives reached out and said things like, "We really wish you had done them," or "It just wasn't the same without you." At first, I didn't know how to respond. Because what could I say? Thanks. But your appreciation doesn't erase the fact that I wasn't invited. I stayed polite, short, distant. I wasn't looking for validation or pity. I had moved past that. But those little comments did something else. They confirmed what I already knew. I had value. Not just as a photographer, but as a person. And it hurt even more to realize that strangers could recognize my worth more than my own family could. But none of it, not the awkward photos, not the whispers, was the real issue. The worst part wasn't the fact that I missed a wedding. The real wound came from how easily I was pushed out. How simple it was for them to replace me, exclude me, forget about me. All because I chose to draw a boundary. I thought that would haunt them a little. That maybe someone would come to their senses. That someone, especially my mom, would take a moment to see how deeply this had cut me. For a while, I didn't hear anything from her. Radio silence. No, are you okay? No, let's talk. Nothing. Then. About 3 weeks later, she finally reached out. She asked if I could come over for tea, said she missed me, that she wanted to talk. I hesitated. I didn't know if I was ready. But a part of me, the daughter part, the loyal part, the one who still wanted a relationship, said yes. I sat across from her in our family's kitchen, the same place where we'd shared hundreds of meals and birthdays and holidays. But something was different. The warmth I used to feel when I walked into that house had faded. I was more guarded now. Less forgiving. She looked at me with that careful, motherly expression, the one she used when she knew she had messed up but didn't want to say the actual words. And she started with, "We didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't say anything, she went on. We just assumed you'd help out like always. You've always been so dependable, so generous. I guess we took that for granted. And there was the root of it all. They didn't plan to hurt me. They just never stopped to think about me. Because to them I was a fixture. A given. A backup plan. Someone who would always be available, always useful. Always second place. That's what hurt the most, not malice, but indifference. So I looked her in the eye. And I said something I never thought I'd say out loud. I'm not just a service. I'm your daughter. She blinked, and for the first time I saw something shift in her expression. A kind of quiet realization. Not guilt maybe, but awareness. Like she finally understood what she'd done, not just at the wedding but over the years. We talked for a while after that. About the way things had been. The way I'd always shown up and they'd always expected me to. How often I'd said yes to keep the peace, even when I was exhausted or hurt or left out. And how that peace, the kind where I'm always the one compromising, wasn't peace at all. It was silence, it was resentment. It was slowly disappearing into the background until I couldn't even recognize myself anymore. That conversation didn't fix everything. It wasn't a dramatic movie ending where she cried and begged for forgiveness, but it was honest. And sometimes, honesty is more powerful than apologies. Since then, we've still talked. We still have a relationship. But it's different now because I'm different now. I don't rush to say yes just because someone asks. I don't drop everything to make other people comfortable. I don't pretend to be okay when I'm not. I've learned to set boundaries, not because I don't love my family, but because I finally started loving myself. And I've learned something else too. Something I wish I'd known earlier. Being needed isn't the same as being valued. Being useful isn't the same as being loved. And being included only when it's convenient isn't inclusion at all. I've let go of the fantasy that family always means unconditional support. What I hold on to now is respect and the reminder that I deserve it, even if I have to demand it. So no, things aren't the same anymore. But for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with that. They wanted me to work, not to celebrate, but I chose to walk away with my self-respect. If you've ever been treated like a backup plan by your own family, you're not alone. Comment your thoughts and subscribe for more real-life stories that deserve to be heard.